This is part 2 of sharing dreams and visions that myself and my youngest little girl had. And I'm going to begin by sharing this dream that my little girl had on the 25th of April in 2022. So it began with, she saw people in blocks of ice. A rope was attached to the blocks of ice, and that rope was also attached to regular-sized bears who were pulling the blocks of ice with people in them. The people in the blocks of ice were actually alive and awake. Then these massive giant bears began coming and stomping on the blocks of ice with people in them and killed them. These bears were massive. They would crush houses, whole houses with families in them, killing whole families. Then it switches to a different scene where we're all hiding in our home, and we had kind of set up camp in this one small room, in the schoolroom actually, and we even made a bed using a cardboard box to cover us, to make it dark so we couldn't be seen. There's actually a coffee table that my husband made with, and has like a cross inlaid in it, and we were actually under that table, so that just to me is symbolic of hiding in the secret place of the Most High. We knew there was these giant mud giants. They would form into a ball of mud and then roll and would grab people. They grabbed, several of our family members. And so Dylan said that she prayed that God would not allow her and I to be separated. She heard something like this. She didn't know where it came from, but she heard this. This is the number 4. And she said, I don't know if I heard it or I knew, but she said, I can't explain it, but this is the number 4. So it was around that time, I think it was the day after she told me she had the dream. She told me she kept hearing the night before that she needed to fast. And so I told her I would do it with her. We actually fasted for half a day. She couldn't go a full day, but around about 5 minutes before she began asking to eat, I had prayed and was led to Joel 2, verses 12 through 27, which talks about a call to repentance. Turning to the Lord with all of our heart, with fasting, weeping, and mourning. Blow the trumpet in Zion, consecrate a fast, and you can read all that. But then it gets into the land being refreshed, and that he will remove far from you the northern army, which goes with the last video that I shared about my dreams. And I shared Joel 2 in that video. So that same day, I actually opened my Bible to read, and I opened up to the book of Daniel. And I was led to chapter 7, and he spoke and he said, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. And then the second was like a bear, raised up on one side, and had 3 ribs in his mouth between his teeth, and they said thus to it, arise and devour much flesh. Then there's the 4th beast that rises up. And as I said, she kept hearing, this is number 4. So it makes sense that that's what she was talking about, or that's what was being spoken to her. So I'm getting into a dream now that she had on August the 22nd, 2022. So she kept telling me during this time that she's telling me the dream, she said, Mom, I knew I was dreaming in the dream, but it still really scared me, which reminds me of what Daniel felt. He said he was terrified of these visions of the night he had. So here's the dream. She said her and I were in the city, and Satan was there. He looked like a man dressed in a black suit. He was trying to get Dylan away from me, but he couldn't. He was pretending to be nice to her, but she knew he wasn't nice. Dylan was holding on to the hand of this little girl who wore glasses. She said that the little girl was an angel sent by God to protect her. On her other hand, the devil was holding on to Dylan's other hand. So she said that the devil was going to burn us up in a fire, And we were happy because we were finally going to heaven. That's her and I. She said, her and I, the devil was trying to kill us. And she said to the devil, if you think we're going to hell, we're not. So he changed his mind about trying to burn us up, she said. And God saved us. And he made the devil fall in the fire, and he was burnt up. So that really seems to match with like the war on the saints, waging war against the saints. And it also matches up with God throwing him into the fire, into the lake of fire. So I'll continue. We're still in this city, but she said the city was really broken down. Buildings were knocked down, so it looks like some destruction had hit already. This little boy showed up. Dylan said that she was sad because we knew we were going to heaven, and she was having to leave her stuffed animals behind, some of her favorite stuffed animals. And the little boy said in a calm, soothing voice, it's okay, but she just kept crying about leaving her stuffed animals on the earth. She said that the little boy was also an angel sent in human form to give comfort. So she said her, myself, and her dad and this little boy, we all sat and we looked to this river. And she said the river wasn't like a river though. It looked like a blue ocean with these big waves. And she's crying and she looks at me during the dream. She says, Mom, is the beast going to rise out of the sea? So this is what she saw. She said, we see a splash in the river. And upon describing this, she said it was like a wave that rose up and down continuously in the middle of the river. And then she said these huge triceratops-like beasts, she said they were like demons. They kept rising up out of the sea. She can't remember if they had 2 or 3 horns. She said they were all dark blue in color. She called them triceratops because they were huge, but their head did not look like triceratops. She described these beasts as having horns that curved inwards like a bull's horns. The name Triceratops, which literally means 3-horned face. It's derived from the Greek words tri, meaning 3, keras, meaning horn, and ops, meaning face. She said out of these waves came these huge beasts. One had a face like a human with human eyes, a light brown beard, and he was smiling. One had a face with circle eyes, not a human face. Others had faces with human eyes, but not human faces. There were actually a lot of these horned beasts coming up. She said they rose up, looked at us, and then began to chase us and all the people in the city. She said the boy was no longer there. And then she woke up in this panic. She kept telling me that in her dream she knew this was a dream as she dreamt it, which really makes sense when you read Daniel chapter 7.
In the first year of Belshazzar, king of Babylon, Daniel had a dream, and visions passed through his mind as he was lying in bed. He wrote down the substance of his dream. Daniel said, In my vision at night I looked, and there before me were the 4 winds of heaven, churning up the great sea. 4 great beasts, each different from the others, came up out of the sea. The first was like a lion, and it had the wings of an eagle. I watched until its wings were torn off, and it was lifted from the ground so that it stood on 2 feet like a human being. And the mind of a human was given to it. And there before me was a second beast, which looked like a bear. It was raised up on one of its sides, and it had 3 ribs in its mouth between its teeth. It was told, Get up and eat your fill of flesh. After that I looked, and there before me was another beast, one that looked like a leopard. And on its back it had 4 wings like those of a bird. This beast had 4 heads, and it was given authority to rule. After that, in my vision at night I looked, and there before me was a 4th beast, terrifying and frightening and very powerful. It had large iron teeth. It crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. It was different from all the former beasts, and it had 10 horns. While I was thinking about the horns, there before me was another horn, a little one, which came up among them, and 3 of the first horns were uprooted before it. This horn had eyes like the eyes of a human being, and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I looked, thrones were set in place, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His clothing was as white as snow. The hair of his head was white like wool. His throne was flaming with fire, and its wheels were all ablaze. A river of fire was flowing, coming out from before him. Thousands upon thousands attended him. 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The court was seated, and the books were opened. Then I continued to watch because of the boastful words the horn was speaking. I kept looking until the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and thrown into the blazing fire. The other beasts had been stripped of their authority, but were allowed to live for a period of time. In my vision at night I looked, and there before me was one like a son of man, coming with the clouds of heaven. He approached the Ancient of Days and was led into his presence. He was given authority, glory, and sovereign power. All nations and peoples of every language worshipped him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion that will not pass away, and his kingdom is one that will never be destroyed. I, Daniel, was troubled in spirit, and the visions that passed through my mind disturbed me. I approached one of those standing there, and asked him the meaning of all this. So he told me and gave me the interpretation of these things. The 4 great beasts are 4 kings that will rise from the earth. But the holy people of the Most High will receive the kingdom and will possess it forever, yes, forever and ever. Then I wanted to know the meaning of the 4th beast, which was different from all the others and most terrifying, with its iron teeth and bronze claws. The beast that crushed and devoured its victims and trampled underfoot whatever was left. I also wanted to know about the 10 horns on its head, and about the other horn that came up, before which 3 of them fell, the horn that looked more imposing than the others, and that had eyes and a mouth that spoke boastfully. As I watched, this horn was waging war against the holy people and defeating them, until the Ancient of Days came and pronounced judgment in favor of the holy people of the Most High, and the time came when they possessed the kingdom. He gave me this explanation. The 4th beast is a 4th kingdom that will appear on earth. It will be different from all the other kingdoms, and will devour the whole earth, trampling it down and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and the laws. The holy people will be delivered into his hands for a time, times, and half a time. But the court will sit, and his power will be taken away and completely destroyed forever. Then the sovereignty, power, and greatness of all the kingdoms under heaven will be handed over to the holy people of the Most High. His kingdom will be an everlasting kingdom, and all rulers will worship and obey him. This is the end of the matter. I, Daniel, was deeply troubled by my thoughts, and my face turned pale. But I kept the matter to myself. Revelation 13. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns and 7 heads, with 10 crowns on its horns, and on each head a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear and a mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power and his throne and great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have had a fatal wound, but the fatal wound had been healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People worshipped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast, and they also worshipped the beast and asked, "Who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it?" The beast was given a mouth to utter proud words and blasphemies, and to exercise its authority for 42 months. It opened its mouth to blaspheme God, and to slander his name and his dwelling place, and those who live in heaven. It was given power to wage war against God's holy people and to conquer them. And it was given authority over every tribe, people, language, and nation. All inhabitants of the earth will worship the beast, all whose names have not been written in the Lamb's book of life, the Lamb who was slain from the creation of the world. Whoever has ears, let them hear. If anyone is to go into captivity they will go. If anyone is to be killed with the sword they will be killed. This calls for patient endurance and faithfulness on the part of God's people.
I'm sure you've heard the term sleeping giant, but maybe you haven't heard of mud fossils or mud titans. But if you look it up, you can research it and find all kinds of information. I had no idea this even existed. But here are some pictures from a video, and I'm going to link the video to give the guy credit who put this together in the description box. But this basically takes me to Jesus talking about remaining watchful. In Matthew 24, verse 36, it says, "But of that day and hour no one knows, not even the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah were, so also will the coming of the Son of Man be. For as in the days before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving in marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and did not know until the flood came and took them all away. So also will the coming of the Son of Man be." So it obviously makes a lot of sense why she saw mud giants. She saw the great tribulation. She saw what is coming upon the earth. So I'm just being obedient to share the pieces that I have. Maybe somebody has more to add to this, more to help me understand. But I'm just being obedient to share what the Lord has shown myself and my little girl through these dreams and visions.